Man, brothers, what's going on in Texas, man? Did you see those lines earlier today?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy. I
yeah.
thought you know what that reminded me of? Remember that year when Mandela became president? Remember how that
Hmm.
line was like 7 miles or something? I think they were saying. That's how it
Hmm.
reminded. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. That don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. You gonna have, and as big as Texas is, you gonna have in
Okay, here we go,
one county
brothers.
for the whole state. It's
Mm.
crazy.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special edition of Showtime TV. This is episode 6 of a conversation with men of color, and I have 3 distinguished gentlemen. These gentlemen are just totally awesome. I'm truly honored. I'm a little nervous being around these big shots, but we got Raleigh Rustam, we got Coach D. Dell Andrews, and we got Oscar Sanders. Gentlemen, good evening.
Yeah, it's good
Evening,
to
brother
Good
Omar.
evening.
good to
All
be
right,
here, man.
okay,
Hello, Omar.
all right,
Yeah.
so very briefly, let's start with Oscar. If you guys, all 3 gentlemen, give just a little background about yourself, your occupation, your family, and your educational background, if you will. We'll start with Oscar.
Yeah, I'm a social justice spoken word author, playwright, and I'm just like a vein for everything that's going on in society and the urban the urban slavery that's going on right now. Even though they claim to pay us, a lot of times it's still below market value, and all those stories that are ripped from the headlines of things that are sincere to me. I can't grew up in the Bronx, New York, played a lot of sports, basketball, football, baseball, tennis, traveled a lot, played jazz guitar for about 17 years, and shared the stage with some fascinating people, playing with this gentleman jazz violinist called Billy Bang. And I mean, from Betty Carter to Gary Peacock, Tom Brown, Miles Davis, all types of people. It's beautiful. And this was like in the 80s, so when people were like, when a lot of blacks weren't basically either were in the military, or they were musicians. That's the real reason why blacks were out there at that time. So it was great. It got me to evolve to where I am, today, and just wanting to be one of the jewels of society, especially for black people. Because we've always been underserved.
Okay, Coach D, you're up.
Yeah. Hey, Omar. Yeah, Daryl Andrews, Coach D, the owner of Daryl Andrews and Associates. We are a workforce development and education consulting firm here in Delaware. I've been doing this work now for 20 years. I've authored 8 books. My most recent book is The Parent is Coach, Developing a Family Dream Team. My belief is simply that as parents, we should be the coach of our household teams and everybody else is an assistant coach. So, the preachers, the teachers, those are the people who are there to support us. But as parents, we need to be the ones with strategy for our children to be able to maximize their God given potential. So, with that being said, I'm a proud graduate of an HBCU, Cheney University. I'm a first generation college graduate, first person in my family to get a 4-year degree. Married to beautiful love of my life, Pamela Andrews. We've been married for 26 years. She's a graduate of North Carolina A&T with a degree in electrical engineering. When I met her, she was a nuclear engineer. So I'm a bad brother to be able to pull that off.
Wow.
You gonna marry a nuclear engineer, you're a bad brother. So,
Wow.
and yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
so Pam, and as a result of meeting that beautiful woman, I've now have 4 beautiful children. My oldest is Daryl Jr., who's about to turn 23. I have Sophia Olivia. She's a student at American University, a global scholar there. Very proud of her. Daryl just graduated from Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida, the #1 animation school in the United States. He's the only young man of color to get a degree in illustration and visual development. So Daryl's pretty unique. I'm just trying to get him out there because the world needs to know he's there, with what he's has to offer. And then I have my son Alexander Joshua, who's 17. I call him my twin. He looks just like his dad, and he's
Right,
a
right.
senior and wants to go into the either the Naval Academy or the West Point. So that's kind of his dream. And then we have a beautiful little daughter, 10-year-old Abigail Jubilee. I call her the cherry on top. We adopted her when she was born, literally walked right into the hospital and picked her up. And so that's my story, man. I love our people. I've advocated in our state on a number of occasions for many things. I'm a business owner. A lot of people don't know this. So back when Tony Allen was the president of the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League, Tony, myself, and Helen Parsons were very much instrumental in really kind of, I don't want to say forcing the state's hand, but through proper legislation and connections to open up the Office of Supplier Diversity. It did not exist. We went down and lobbied for it, got it open, and we're still trying to get them to do the right thing with that. But the reality is, it's not just about me, it's not just about us, it's about us collectively, trying to help our people get opportunities within the opportunities. So glad to be on board, man. I'm committed to the cause every day, and very committed, very serious about seeing positive outcomes in our community and our families.
Okay, all right, Wally.
Well, good evening again, Brother Omar. Again, thank you so much for the invitation to be a part of the conversation tonight. And I'm really honored to be part of this conversation with Brother Oscar and Brother Coach D, who I've had the pleasure of working alongside on a number of projects over the years. Just in the way of background on myself, I'm a proud adopted son of Delaware, but I come here by way of Chester, Pennsylvania. My family is a very loving family, a hardworking family, but my family had dreams for me that were ones that they did not necessarily have an opportunity to live out themselves. Dreams for a better life, dreams for education that would take me places that our family had not seen. And a lot of sacrifices were made in order to help those dreams come true. Chester, as those who may be familiar with it, it has a lot of challenges. But despite those challenges, that family nucleus full of values helped keep me focused and away from some of those things that took some of my peers into paths that they couldn't return from. And that path was really generated on how education could be a catalyst for transformation. Yeah. So we sort of kept focused on that. And the reality was that notwithstanding that commitment to education, there were limitations on what that environment could provide, specifically for my brother and I to do better for our lives. So the decision was made, a very fateful decision, to move the family in part to Delaware, where I continued my education here, attended schools in Newcastle County, proud graduate of William Penn High School, then matriculated on to Delaware Community College, then from there, University of Delaware, and then on to Rutgers Law School, where I fulfilled my lifelong dream of becoming an attorney, one that was a path that was told to me was possible, but one that was never really clear because I didn't have any models to follow. I just had a dream, and I had people who believed in my dream who encouraged me to not make excuses for why I couldn't do things, but to believe in what was a divine calling for me to achieve, and ultimately help provide inspiration to those who came from the similar circumstances to fight for their dreams, whatever that dream may be. I don't care what it is. So that's the truth that I stand in, and through my living my own truth, I've used that success in order to make sure that I communicate that it's no big secret. It's no happenstance as to how you can achieve similar things for yourself. So I was committed to working with young people to make sure that they understood that their dreams were accessible, that their dreams were not better than them, that they deserved their dreams. That's been sort of my mantra, and that for a lot of our young people, the only thing that they're missing is an opportunity and access to the systems, the knowledge, the strategies that can help them achieve what they want. So I've spent a lot of time over the years through different organizations, my fraternal organization, Kappa Alpha Psi, and others, just basically using systems to work with young people, mentor them, and create opportunity. Ebony Tye Fair Youth Symposium, I was one of the I would say reigniters of that program, which Coach D was a founder of many years ago. And I helped reinvigorate that program in 2012. And we partnered with Delaware State University in order to bring together young men across the state of Delaware to bring them access to an Oscar Sanders or a Coach D or Omar Rashada, to know that we're out there and we care about them. And lastly, I'll just say that my work, my 9 to 5 is I work for a national law firm, one of the top law firms in the country, Fox Rothschild LLP, where I compete with folks who went to Harvard and people who went to Columbia and NYU, the best of the best.
Outstanding.
Young man from Chester, PA, first generation college student. is out there giving it as well as I'm getting it. And I take immense pride in that. And my family, again, is the backbone of everything I do. And I have to give a shout out lastly to my beautiful wife, Yolanda, who is the backbone of our family and my household. And my recent addition, Mr. Noah Bilal, rushed in, my 2-year-old, trying to raise him up right in the way of, as Coach D explained. I like I'm going to have to buy that book to make sure I get those strategies, those coaching strategies to make sure we do this right. So looking forward to the conversation with y'all brothers for sure.
Outstanding.
Well, let me ask you, gentlemen. You gentlemen have very distinct careers. Two of you stated that you were entrepreneurs. Coach D, you got your own business. Oscar, you got your own business. I want to ask you what motivated you to want to develop your own business as opposed to work for someone else? And then Wally, your brother is a medical doctor. And I'm quite sure that your parents, your mother and your father, you got two wonderful parents. How proud they must be to have one son be a lawyer and the other one be a medical doctor. And how proud of you, of your brother being a doctor, and how proud of he is for you to be a lawyer. But let's start off with Coach D and Oscar. Start off with Coach D first. Being an entrepreneur, why did you decide to take that path?
You know, you hear people say all the time that people were born something. Yeah, I was born an entrepreneur. I mean, I remember back when I was 8 years old, I'm gonna give my age away now. We used to read these comic books, and in the back of the comic book, they would have, you can sell Christmas cards. And so they would send you the Christmas cards. You would get like 35% of all your sales and 40 cents. And I was 8, 9 years old. And at 8, 9 years old, I was one of the top salespeople in the country for children. Because I found a way at 8 to go out, you know, because back then times were back, you know, in those days, things were different back in the 70s and all that. You know, you did people to let their kids walk around all over the place. And so I would go and I'm literally hustling these cards to people as I would see them. And I mean, and I'm walking around 8, 9 years old with wads in my pockets. They're like, where's this little boy with all this money? Is he like a runner or something? I said, no, I sell Christmas cards. So from that, I'm not gonna try to make this like a bridge instead of protracted, but you know, I started babysitting, shoveling snow. You know, I just love making my own money. But then as I matured into this, it wasn't about just making money. It was about trying to create something that I can create with my gifts, talents, and abilities that could have impact. And so as a person who was gifted in a sense with linguistics and ability to inspire and motivate, and because people just directed me down that path when I was younger, I said, I want to use my voice to make a difference. And so I did a stint with corporate America. I worked for a company called Abbott Laboratories, had a great career there in the medical diagnostics division, you know, was moving up the fast track, but my heart for entrepreneurism just took over and ended up resigning from that position and started my own company 22 years ago. Wow. And so entrepreneurism to me is my lifeblood. I love it. I love creating. I've created a lot of different models and systems and frameworks. So it's not just motivation per se, but it's systems. Like right now, one big thing that people are calling us up, and it's me, and I have a small team as well, but talking about equity motivation. So we're doing a lot with equity with organizations and businesses and corporations and schools and school districts and things like that. But what I like about it, it's my framework. You know, I created this and I have other people that can deliver it, but I've created this. And that's the part I love about entrepreneurism, the creativity of it. You can come up with ideas and concepts that didn't even exist and take them to the marketplace and create something that's beautiful and fantastic. So it's just in me, Omar. But I also like the ability just to use my gifts, talents, and abilities to create something that maybe it never existed. Like I'll give you one example. Like Wally and I both, you know, we both love working with kids and helping youth. So one of my books is entitled The Purpose Living Teen, A Teen's Guide to Living Your Dreams. And for a number of years, that was my best-selling book. Well, I wanted to do more than the book, so I created a training model called the Passion Mapping Seminar. So we would literally have these process systems where we would help train youth about finding their purpose and connecting it to a career. And in that, we came up with something called the Passion Pathways, where there's these 5 pathways that you can find it. Well, from that, I had no idea that this idea would end up a national phenomenon. And then before you know it, we got organizations all over the country calling us to come fly all over the United States to teach these principles to their young people. But that's because of entrepreneurism. I was able to create that, but you know, be able to create something that not only was a blessing to me and my family, but hundreds of thousands of young people all over this country have been blessed by. So that's why I did it, man. I love entrepreneurism, and I'm gonna go to the grave with it. I ain't never gonna work for nobody. It's just in my blood, man.
That's awesome.
So anyway, just that's why. Hope that
Okay.
wasn't too long of an answer, but yeah.
Okay. Oscar?
Yeah, for me it was simple. Either I got fired too often or I quit too often. So you know what? So what I found out was over time, you know, I was always an advocate for myself, and I realized it was much easier for me to leave than to try to change somebody else's business, because in actuality it was theirs. I used to see people losing hair, died, you know, stressing out, crying in the office, you know, because you know they feel that they're stuck or they're not being heard or they're being taken advantage of. You know, I was like the type of person that would always speak my mind. You know, I was like a cross between like Fred Hampton and like Paul Mooney. You know, like, can you imagine me working for you? You don't even want to ask me. What do you think, Sanders? What do you think about it? Boy, you don't know where this is going. You don't know where this is going. You know, but nothing angry, but it's just it wasn't their model. It wasn't the way they wanted to run their business, which was, you know, cool. Mm-hmm. So over time, you know, I realized I had to learn to do something else, and you know, I did like a whole bunch of things. But then I felt that I could teach kids, you know, about being active in their own future. So I called it like, you know, civic engagement, and really teaching them, because a lot of schools, I know schools I went to, you know, it was like the French Revolution and, you know, all these other people with, you know, all these medals, and I didn't see no black people. And they thought, you know, black history was like Martin Luther King. You know, that was it, you know. So that's where I come in. So what I do is with my plays are one-man performances that I perform in 10 different characters. And those characters go from Vin Scully, Bernie Mac, Al Pacino, Lieutenant Columbo, Jimmy Cagney. But the content is ripped from the headlines like Law and Order, and so we're talking about the Flint crisis. We're talking about pay-for-play scandals in different states. We're talking about something similar to what Puffy used to say: more money, more problems. I have new levels, new devils. As we achieve more success, the problems that come along with that. And so those things I'm able to like talk to kids about and ask them questions and get them involved. So I outsource myself to like a lot of like social programs and schools to do that, and now converting over, you know, to everything being virtual. And but at the same time, I have a three-pronged literacy program that I also use using cinema to explore different solutions, like almost like it's like a cinema-based cognitive behavior type of thing, or cognitive therapy, where we use movies and scenes to solve or to give at least an option to kids of another alternative besides lashing out. You know, so I would ask them to, you know, to talk about, you know, what their fears were. And then because of my filmmaking background, and the fact that I just love films as a form of conversation, most of anything that I've ever said, unfortunately, has come out of a film. You know, it's like, you know, that's why. So Sippy said, "You said that so well." I said, "Yeah, I know. Cary Grant, 1949. You know, so that's where it came from." So I use these examples to teach kids how to get more involved. And so that you know, it was just a class. At one point, I needed to move on. It seems like I keep doing like transformations into different things, you know, from films all the way to, you know, spoken word poetry to screenwriting now. You know, I've been doing for a couple of years and getting awards, you know, for them. And, you know, talking to a major film icon, a horror icon, who's very interested in doing the screenplay that I have, which is like it's a black school shooter. It's a school shooter, black hero. Film.
Okay, and you're also an author, right?
Yes. Oh, I forgot to talk about that when you asked me in the very beginning. Yes, in 2015, I put out a New York City Hall murder mystery entitled Final Hearing. And that was basically a murder mystery about two people, like a Bill and Hillary Clinton type, over Obama, Barack and Michelle type, very popular city councilman. And he has his wife is a white shoe lawyer. 6 months apart, they get murdered. And then at that point, the brother, which is a legislative assistant for the city councilman, has his brother come in because he runs for the seat. He loses to the wife, but ultimately the wife gets killed in the Cayman Islands on a business initiative. She was trying to drum up business with the Cayman Islands and the Bronx, New York, and got murdered. So he became city council. And from there, the point is, the point that I'm making, well, one of the points in the book is, as people always say when they say that I'm an outsider, you hear people say when they don't come from Washington, I'm an outsider. And I always say you're an outsider till you go in. And once you go in, you're an insider. And see, that's what these brothers wound up finding out, the muck and the mud that's involved in politics. And it's weird because I wrote about a Donald Trump type of character. Also, not even thinking about him. But, you know, this guy was just greedy. I mean, he's wealthy like a Bloomberg, but he actually wants to build low-income housing that's supposed to be developed by minorities. But he's so greedy, you know, to do this. And he was refused by the brothers. So he wound up setting the brothers up, put money in their account, made sure he tracked back to them, then sent the information to a district attorney. And then subsequently they got arrested for taking bribes that they never took, but there was proof. It was crazy, you know. So, and then from there, I morphed into doing my current book, which is called Exposing Politics, a collection of poetry, social justice, spoken word. And it's just over 35 different poems from everything from, like I said, the Flint crisis, the pay for play scandal, you know, just the racism and the fact that, you know, we can't, the cheating that goes on in the world from white people, I exploit that. And I say that with integrity, that I feel it needs to be said, because I felt like, you know, to me, you know, the way that they talk about being unfair in this country, and everything that they ever got was from being unfair. You know, I made a meme, a collage, and I said, you know, I had Major League Baseball is black people. And then you had Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, and Roger Clemens with white supremacists. And you see how different baseball is with when you have Barry Bonds and then when you don't. And that's the advantage that white people had over us from day one. You know, they never wanted to pay us right. They even tell us that even if we make $90 million, and I found this out when you seen the whole Donald Sterling thing with the Clippers. And they said, you can make $90 million and still be called a slave and still be called a nigger. Matter of fact, it takes 90 million for me to call you one. That's so you never get out of it, you know. And one of my performances from the Soldier Story, I play Sergeant Waters, and I speak on that called "They Still Hate You, No Matter What You Do." And that's what Sergeant Waters said when he was shot. He was like, white folks, no matter how good we are, how much we excel, we're still a nigger, unfortunately. Right. So I preach that.
Right. Okay, well, Ali, you and your brother got, man, lawyer and a doctor. Parents must be very proud.
Yeah, and I just got to acknowledge, man, that was extremely powerful, Brother Oscar.
Thank you, brother.
You know, you said a lot that resonated with me, but one thing in particular was this concept of you're an outsider until you're an insider, or you're an outsider until you're an insider, and it sort of dovetails with I think sort of the context of Brother Umar's tee up to me is that you know, from where we came from, I think there was this idea of feeling like we're on the outside. Okay. You know, feeling like we're on the outskirts of society, feeling like, you know, there is a weight that we're trying to press against for opportunity. And you know, some people may think it's imagined, but it felt very real to me. And whether it was imagined or not, it was one of the main things that motivated me. I didn't like the idea of there being a second-class citizen, you know, who had limited opportunities based on where they came from or what their families may or may not have achieved in their generation. And you know, as an adult, I can reflect back on this consciousness that I had as a child. It was this hunger, and I think I can speak fairly for my brother that we both had it. that we just desperately wanted to not be subject to anyone's preconceived notions about our capabilities, our capacity, or what our life would be. And furthermore, we wanted to get into that system, not to be assimilate, but in order to basically reimagine what it could look like when there are people of a different consciousness and a different understanding. And I think that, particularly in my field of work and the type of work that I do, one of the giants of the legal community nationwide, not just in Delaware, is Louis Lorenzo Redding. And Mr. Redding was a bad man. And I mean bad meaning good in the best way. And Mr. Redding is the architect for the desegregation of schools, not only in the state of Delaware, but nationwide.
Oh, wow.
Just a little historical fact. The name Thurgood Marshall should be revered and honored for the contributions that he made to society. And one of the things that he's always attached to is arguing the landmark 1954 decision of Brown versus Board of Education. Right. But one little known fact that people don't readily acknowledge is that the blueprint for the successful argument at the Supreme Court was laid out by one Louis Lorenzo Redding from Delaware.
Wow. Oh, wow.
The first African-American, the first diverse attorney of any persuasion, whether it be a female, whether it be any type of ethnic diversity. Mr. Redding passed the bar, and he was the only diverse attorney for about 20 years or so. So if you had a civil rights case, if you had some type of discrimination case, that fell on the shoulders of Mr. Redding. And he designed that blueprint for successfully arguing before the Delaware Chancery Court and to the Delaware Supreme Court why separate but equal was unconstitutional. In his case, his argument became the blueprint for the Supreme Court case. Now, the reason why I invoke that is because even as someone who has, gone through my life fighting primarily for my family, I was always raised with a consciousness that it's beyond you. And again, I can speak for my brother as well. It's never been about us achieving a modicum of success as society measures success. I'm a lawyer. I work for a big law firm. Kudos to me, right? That's not the thing that I'm proud of my achievements. I don't want to mitigate them. I am proud of my achievements. However, for me, those achievements mean very little if I am not actively showing people who look like me, who come from where I come from, about how they can access that if that's what they want, or how they can access anything that's available for them if that's what they want. So for me, it's always been about, that outsider, but being an insider, not for your approval, Mr. Insider, but more so for me to be able to break down barriers and create, opportunity,
role models,
inroad, right?
Yeah,
reallocate
man.
Resources, when decisions are being made about how decisions are how resources are allocated, having a seat at the table to be able to say, well, do you consider this? Or did you consider that? Oh, I didn't even know that existed. Well, now you do. And this is something that we need to get behind. So I take that very seriously. And, again, every opportunity that I get as a result of whatever success I achieve and the positions and the doors that opens, I'm always thinking primarily about the people who come from where I come from, who are depending on me to operate with integrity and truth. And again, know how to navigate those situations. It's a careful navigation, but you got to remember why you're there. And I do that, whether it's, I didn't mention before, I'm currently serving on the Delaware State Board of Education as the vice president of the state board. It's a lot of very important decisions that are being made. Different people's points of view are coming into that. Some things, you question whether or not people are really thinking about the children and educators. But that's where I'm always coming from is thinking about the kids in the communities who aren't, who don't know how to lobby or don't know how to, organize. How do these decisions impact them? And again, speaking for my brother as a medical doctor, as the first MD in our family, I'm immensely proud of my brother. I'm truly blessed for being able to come through my life with somebody. You know, you talk about the whole adage of iron sharpens iron. God blessed me by putting my brother in my life, and we sharpened each other's iron along the way as we went through our life. So, you know, he's still my little brother. I you know, I give him a hard time, but I'm immensely proud of him.
Right. Okay, Wally, I want to stay with you for a moment because I was thinking about this when I had you on this panel. I want to talk about the prisons, the prison system. Across the United States of America, the prisons are overfilled with us, African-American men. Here in Delaware, you got Young's Correctional Center, you got Georgetown, you got Smyrna, overpopulated with African-American men anywhere in this country. So let me ask you as a lawyer, why is that? I mean, do we commit more crimes? Is there systematic racism? Is there lack of opportunities? What is the direct correlation that results in the prisons being overfilled with African-American men? Should nonviolent offenders be released? I mean, I'm thinking all this is coming through my mind. So you're a lawyer. You're in the court system for how long you've been a lawyer. But talk to me. If anybody else want to chime in, then they can.
Definitely. And I suspect that everybody can add some different flavors to this conversation. You know, I want to be clear that, you know, I'm not a criminal lawyer. So I don't want to misrepresent my particular level of expertise on the nuances of this area, but I am an African-American man. I've been one for the last 38 years of my life. And I have represented folks in the system on a pro bono basis. So I do have some tangential relationship to the nuances, but the bottom line is that systems create outcomes. You know, if you design a system, or if the system has a flaw in it, the flaw will manifest itself. And when we talk about the percentages of a population of people, right, in an entire country, right, that make up that country, you talk about the percentage of those people that are then represented within this particular component, our prison system, it's disproportionate immensely. Mm-hmm. So again, if you don't ask the right questions, you won't get the right answers. And a lot of people will not ask honestly the question why, right? Which is the question that you are asking. And I think that, yes, it is a way that the system is designed. And we're starting to finally come to an understanding about these things through the way changes always happen in this country, through ugly conversations that are necessary, that sometimes are, there's physical nature to it. We've went to wars in order to transform our society. So I don't, when you talk about, the issue of disproportionate, incarceration of African-American males, it's essentially akin to slavery. So we went to war in this country to abolish a system, a legal system, right? That was legal. We legally imprison people. And I think we also need to be clear about what we're talking about when we talk about imprisoning people, right? We have God's law, right? God's law is sort of, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt, not covet another man's wife, so on and so forth, right? We have those things, and what we've taken, and God has, for those who believe, has his way of manifesting his judgment, right? God will judge you, right? But as men and women who live in this society, we've had to create rules to govern our society. So we've adopted, sort of co-opted some of what those laws are to govern our society, but yet we still have to understand that the authority that comes for the prison system is man's authority, right? And we as a civil society say, we are going to agree that this particular system will buy into it because it's going to keep everything orderly. But the key to it is that it's going to be fair, right? That's the linchpin. I agree to be subject to the penalties of this free society, for order, for peace. But the key is that you have to do it according to these particular rules. And again, that's where I think the rub happens, is that the rules aren't being enforced the same way for everyone. And, I sort of alluded to, and this is a very multi-layered topic when you talk about, education, when you talk about socioeconomic issues, which I think are a tremendous driver for this conversation. Crime is not something that I think is difficult to understand. I don't think people aspire to a life of crime, right? As we define it. Again, crime is something that's defined. You define a crime, you create a crime. I want to be clear, right and wrong, God's law. Crime, man's law. Some of it's parallel, but some of it's not. God didn't make up the drug laws, man did, okay? A lot of people incarcerated for drugs, okay? Let's be clear. So right. We define what we say is right and wrong and what we're going to punish people for. But we got to look at why folks are going towards certain paths. And the socioeconomic aspect cannot be ignored. If you do not have a society of people that are ready to know about entrepreneurship, Coach D and Brother Oscar spoke eloquently about the importance of understanding entrepreneurship and why they chose that path and why they embrace it. A lot of us are trained to think we need to work for someone, me included, right? Entrepreneurship was something that I learned much later in life about that was even accessible to me, that was something I could be my own boss if I chose to. And that's a concept that a lot of us don't learn, but when we learn it, they learn it through what? A pathway that is going to, be deemed illegal by our society. Whereas if they had a person who was an entrepreneur, if they had access to, en masse, somebody who owned a local business in their community or somebody who would take them under their wing, they would see a different pathway. So again, it's a multi-layered conversation, but is it systemic? Most definitely it is. And we need to, I think at a basic level, take ownership of our own. And I'll pass the mic on that. We need to take ownership. If everybody did what Coach D did with his own and said, I'm a coach mine. Yeah. Then
isn't that an extension? That's really like an extension of slavery too, because that's how, I remember when people say, well, you should get a job. Nobody says build a business. We're still saying work for somebody else. And they kind of bring it down to us, they got good benefits and they find all these different amenities to make it okay to keep working for somebody else. So we never like you, Wally, you just said, we're never going to, I know when I grew up, I had like an uncle, two uncles that had businesses. Basically everybody else worked for somebody else. And that's how we taught our kids, postman. MTA, that kind of probation, parole, corrections. Oh, big, I don't know how many African Americans in the Department of Corrections as bus drivers, but we're told that constantly. Nobody says build a business. And that's what we, like what you just said. Well, that has to be the step, the next step. That should be plan B, be a postman.
And and another part of that, I want to talk about the imprisonment part as well, but another part of that too is the support structure. Because I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, we don't have a great support structure in our community.
You're right.
Matter of fact, you're almost kind of somewhat slightly ostracized when you're a Black entrepreneur. It's not like you have systems in place that people, if you go on and you become, I'm just say Wally, you go on and you become a judge, or if you go on and you become a vice president of some corporation, you're like celebrated and honored, but as a business owner, you're a business owner. It's not like people are like, wow, that's a business owner right there. So we got to think about those systems and support structures to encourage our people and our kids to be able to, I always talk to kids about entrepreneurism, always. And I tell you something about this generation is into entrepreneurism because they grew up with Puffy and they grew up with, all these different entrepreneurs. Yeah. And so they're thinking, but they don't realize it's not just a thought. You got to work at this. This is a process. And so there's some education. But I also want to talk about the imprisonment. There's a book that has been suggesting people take a look at. There's a book by a sister out of Stanford. Her name is Jennifer Eberhard. And she wrote a book called Biased. And what it talks about is hidden prejudices. And I'm saying this because this is more on the front end, not the back end with the imprisonment, the front end as far as arrest. Because I bet all four of us got arrest stories or where people tried to arrest. I mean, I remember I told you I was, I'm the first generation college graduate. I was at Cheney University. I'm gonna tell a story, but then I'm gonna talk about Biased in just a moment. So I was at Cheney University. And so in the town of Media, there was this little bank called Elmwood Trust. And so Cheney didn't have banks around it. So you would have to go into Media to go to the bank. And back when I went to school, you know, you had to go pull money out the bank. I'm giving my age away. You didn't have all the ATMs and all that. That was after my college years. So you would have to go in the bank and get your money out. So I'm going into the bank and I'm doing what most people do. You get in line, you go see the teller, you fill out your withdrawal slip. And then I'm talking, and like 5 minutes later, I see like the whole town of media police showing up at the bank.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, man, somebody in here robbing the bank. All right, this is what I'm thinking.
Right.
3 minutes later, the cops come into the bank, rush to the line, grab me, take me out of the line, slam me up against the wall, handcuff me, take that stick they used and put it in the back of my head while they had me pinned up against the wall. And I'm looking around. I didn't know what to do because I was only 20, 21. And I'm thinking, you got the wrong guy. You got the wrong guy. And I would say the bank, I'm thinking like, okay, I add a little humor to it. Like, you want the bank robber, man. Go get the robber, whoever you're going after.
Yeah.
What to do?
Not me. Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
So I'm sitting there and they got me cuffed, man. And then a few minutes later, the chief of police walks in. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm a first generation college student. The first person in my family to go to school. I mean, attempting to be first generation college graduate. I'm trying to change my trajectory, change my life, and I'm about to go to jail. And through God's blessings, Wally, and I'll say it very clearly, God's blessings, he went to the back with the bank manager. They came back. He tells the guy, uncuff him. And they uncuffed me. My hands, wrists are red and all of that. And so I said, and then all the cops, about 10 of them, they all left. And one of the cops was at the tail, and I said, sir, can I ask you something? That was so humiliating. You see all these people looking, I'm not even a criminal. He turns around, puts his stick in my face and said, you better shut the F up.
Wow.
He said, because we will take you in and find another charge.
Wow.
What Dr. Eberhard is talking about in her book is the way they see us. She says on an average day, a police officer may get 70 things over their little system that says black, male, dangerous, have a certain look. So that police officer hearing that all day long, they can go into the calmest black situation, but they're so wired to, have a certain mindset towards us that they immediately think violence. And that's why they're quick to pull those guns. That's why they're quick to do the things that they do. And so I'm saying all that to say that we have a lot of us in prison because on the front end, they're already looking at us like criminals. It's easy. It's a bias. It's a mindset. And she goes into the research, and I don't want to do that. That would take up too much of our time. She breaks it down as to the depths of why this is. But I believe our prisons are full of us because they are so wired to immediately, no matter what the situation, see us as criminals. And so that's why I'm telling my brothers and sisters to keep doing these peaceful protests and whatever it takes. Sometimes it may get a little overboard, but the reality of the matter is this has got to change. We got to end this.
I think fear too, man. Fear has a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah.
Because I remember I talked about Paul Mooney earlier, but remember Paul Mooney's in one of his shows, he said, once black people get involved, they take over.
Yeah.
He said, look at Michael Jordan, look at Tiger Woods, and see, that's another huge fear for white people. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many white people I've worked with that I know didn't deserve that job? That I know shouldn't have been sitting back, for 40 years working there?
Yep.
And the only reason why they got that job is because all the other legal civil rights mandates were procured. They had the Asian, they had the black man, they had the Indian woman, and then everybody else could be white.
Yep.
So how do you keep this overwhelming advantage? You start to chop the legs off of various people. That's why they want to bring back abortion, Roe versus Wade. All these things are things to just block up, but later on they say, well, you shouldn't have had that child. Well, you shouldn't, but you didn't let me have an abortion either. So that's more kids just coming out unwanted. Where are they gonna wind up? In somebody's face with a pistol, ultimately in jail. I mean, and this is something that constantly. But like you said, it's all real racism is created through laws. See, chasing people with tiki with torches and all that. That's those are those kind of people. The real crafty ones, they use the law. You know what I mean? So they can always say, "Oh man, you wanted to buy that home, right? You was right here on this question here. You missed this question, and so you needed 7 out of 10. Instead of 6 out of 10. So oh man, I can't give it to you." And then they can look in your face, knowing that they're jerking you. But but that's very clever. That's why they're fighting us on all these laws. Because once that evens out, once it's an even playing field, is really, really, because look what we could do. Look at what we as people could do when we allow our entrepreneurs to do stuff.
Let me say this as well, real quick, and I said one quick point. When you talk about entrepreneurism, and see, this is the thing: we have to be willing to say what we need to say, no matter what the outcome. We can't be fearful of what people are going to think about us. And that's one of the challenges. People get protective of their little space and they don't want to blow their space up. So I got favor with this person, favor with I don't want favor with none of them. God is my source. So I don't need favor with no person. God got me hooked up. I got business all over the country. I don't need no business here because I'm good. But what I'm saying is this is a point I'm trying to make to add on to what you're saying. So I've been ostracized in some, I'm not going to go say what state I've been, but because I challenge, why don't y'all give Black people business in this state? Why don't y'all give contracts to Black contractors? Why? All right. And so here's the deal. I don't want to go into all the details, but I was at a meeting and they were touting their minority business contracting. And we got a great, minority. I said, okay. So everybody's quiet and I'm not quiet because again, I'm not looking for favor from anybody. And I asked a question. Could you break those numbers down? They're like, what do you mean? I said, when you say minority, you may fool somebody else, but it ain't fooling me. Tell me what the numbers are. What are the percentages of Black-owned businesses that's getting that business? Found out that 25%, they're touting that minority stuff, 25% of the minority were white women-owned businesses that's really owned by their husbands. What I'm trying to tell you is this is the craziness that we're talking about. So when you look at the Black-owned business percentage, it's like 0.5%. And we get nothing. But see, until people are willing to challenge that and stop being so fearful of their positions and the people that they know and the connections, we're never going to change. Maynard Jackson came to our state and said, listen, we formed a barrier at that airport down in Atlanta and said, until we get 50% minority contracting, you ain't building no airport in my city. And guess what they end up getting? 50% contracting. And that's the modern day Atlanta that we see today. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to go on because I go on. We need people that's willing to step up to the plate. That's what I was getting ready to say. I would say, who's next? Who's next? Because the guys that we were looking at, these guys are 70 years old. They're 70 years old. Yeah, man. Yeah. Jesse, we can't keep calling Jesse. And Sharpton and all these. Where are the guys in their 30s and 40s? You know what I mean? That really, or they silenced Minister Farrakhan. At one point, I was like, he's all over the internet, but we can't catch it. He can't come on television. Mm-hmm. Because they know the power. They know the power. His voice can kick up a lot of energy in people. So they keep them on the internet. NBC's not going to put these guys, when I was a kid, these guys were on Donahue. Yeah. They were on the Donahue show. They were on Geraldo. You know what I mean? They were silenced. They silenced. If they didn't have the internet, we would find out nothing. Mm-hmm. Literally, we'd find it's terrible. It's bad, man.
Looking in this country, we just talked about overpopulation of Black men being in jail. Coach D, your story of being pretty much manhandled by the police was a sad one. And unfortunately, we as Black men we're killing each other on a regular basis. Coach D, I know you have 2 sons. Wally, your son's a baby, so he's too young. Oscar, I'm not sure if you have a son. A
7-year-old girl in California. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So Coach D, specifically for you, have there been a time in your life that you feared for the safety of your 2 boys?
There's not a day that goes by I'm not. If I could be real with you. Mm-hmm. There's not a day. when they go out this house, I'm telling them, I'm giving them instructions. You know, when they go to different, I'm giving them instructions all the time, because, you know, it's not fear in the sense that I'm walking around fearful. I just know the reality of how our boys and our people and our men are seen and viewed. And so it's not necessarily that they're doing anything out of the ordinary. It's just that situations and scenarios may appear, and if they don't know how to handle it the right way, what the outcome could be. We've seen it over and over again. My son went to school in Sarasota, Florida, you know, and that's primarily a white town down there. What college he went to, Ringling College of Art and Design. And before going to college, I just had to have that talk. You're in a primary white town. If this ever happens, son, you got to make sure this is what you do. All right. You're not down there to be no hero. Just deal with it, Dad. If I got to come down, I'll come down. You just get through it, and we'll figure out a way to deal with it. But I ain't trying to bring you home in no casket. So he was with his friends in downtown Sarasota, and they were pretty much all Caucasian. And a cop car pulled up and called him over. 6 friends called him. Where are you going? And he's like, I'm going to eat lunch with my friends. Well, who are you? I'm a student at Ringling College. He said, let me see your identification. His friends, thank God, came to his defense and said, he's a fellow student. He's with us. And he's not doing anything wrong, sir. We're just trying to go in here and eat lunch. He still had my son come over and pull his ID out to show that he was a student there. Mm-hmm. So you ask me, Omar, how I feel, man. This is the world we're living in, and it's sad. You know, essentially, I'll say this: a lot of my white, you know, white folks I know in different sectors of life will ask me. I don't fully understand. Like they'll say, like all the stuff that's going on. Some of you probably heard all this. You know, could you educate me, because I just don't understand. And I say to them, you will never understand, right. Because you're not us. You know, you don't have to deal with this. You never had to have that conversation with your sons. You know what I mean? Even if, like, daughters, you never had to have that conversation. If you have a daughter, you have to tell daughters to be careful.
And your own parents, coach. Their own parents.
Yeah.
Their own parents should be teaching them. They should be teaching them. Why are you coming to a black person for that? Like, you watching this, your parents should be telling you, look, kids, this is not what you do.
This is not what
that's not the we're not those white people. You don't just let nobody should be 45 years old still asking you questions like that.
Isn't that the craziest thing?
Yes, that's sad.
It's crazy.
It's terrible.
It's like, you know, and just talk to me about. And I said, you know, the thing about it is, you know, when we talk about, you know, first of all, you can't legislate morality. And thing is, it starts in the heart. And I said, you know, if you can't understand brutality, if you can't understand denial of opportunities, if you can't deny not allowing to go to this school, not getting this promotion, what do I have to explain to you? The reality is that's our reality. Now, that doesn't mean, like Wally said, you know, and I know Chester very well. My first workforce development office was on 9th Street at the community hospital area. So I know that area. I've been up in Chester we were up there for years. And I know, you know, the plight of what goes on in our cities. And I said, you know, so for these people, it's all in the news. It's evidence. George Floyd, we can go, you know, all these different people, and you know, the young lady it's all this is going on. What do I need to explain to you? The reality of the matter is, you know, we as a people are traumatized, we're stereotyped, you know, all these different things. And so now back to your original question, as parents, we got to manage this. But I'll say this, you know what I mean? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm also raising my children to be bold and confident. My daughter speaks up, and she speaks up loudly.
Good.
You know, she and our good friend Chandra Pitt, she runs with Chandra. You know Chandra, that's a girl, man. You know, and they don't play. You know what I mean? And I told my baby, I said, you know what, Dad ain't gonna worry about that. You go ahead and do what you gotta do. You stand, just be smart. And she stands. She's down at American now. She's setting up panels and meetings. They're talking about black rights down there. And
that's what's up. That's what's up.
Years old, man. She's taking it. She goes.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Oh, that's the other part that you see that they're afraid of. Black women. Yeah. You see, and the coded message that you see Donald Trump, as soon as what's the name, Biden, but he used the code. He didn't want to say, he really wanted to say that black bitch, but he said she's mean.
He's a monster.
He said, that guy, because he don't want that person. And a friend of mine used to always say that about Hillary Clinton. White men will never vote take orders from a white woman. So she was doomed from the start. She was doomed from the start. They was that, and can you imagine if Biden only ran one term? The potential that Kamala Harris could be the presidential candidate. You know, it's going to be interesting.
Right. And Wally, so your son's 2 years old.
I was 2 once.
I smile every time I hear that, man. That's such a cute little age, man. I'm telling you.
So have you thought about when you would have the talk with your son, or is it just too early to call?
Yeah, it's special. It's definitely a special time, and y'all might not be able to see my shirt, but I'm gonna take my camera down.
What's up?
It says Black fathers exist, and it has the definition of a Black father on it. And,
outstanding.
It says respected man that leads, protects, and provides for his children.
So
wow. You got a lot of skills, brother. You can even read upside down. You could have been a typesetter. You could have worked for a newspaper, man.
Hey, brother, we on Facebook Live, man. I had to make it happen. You know, no retakes. You know, we got one shot.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
but to the question, you know, this is the part of life that I've been training for, right? All of the things that I've been experienced in life has led me to this moment. Even as a young man, I knew the greatest manifestation of my life was going to be during fatherhood.
Yeah.
Right. I knew that as a young man. I knew that I was preparing for that. I knew that, you know, I made conscientious choices, tough choices, to defer that particular stage of my life so that I would maximize the potential for me to be ready. As ready as I could be, as I'm learning, you know, you prepare, but, you know, they have their own plans and you sort of have to adjust accordingly. But I tell you what, I haven't shared this publicly, and only a few people who know. You mentioned Chandra Pitts, my sister, who I love dearly. The evening that we had our stand-up moment, where we said, where our youth stood up and said, we're not going for this. The surge of the death of Brother Floyd that evening when Wilmington was alive, you know, with activity, you know, I thought to myself, what's my role in this? And I thought about my son.
Yeah.
And I thought about the young people who I mentor, who I've worked with over the years. And I said to myself, and I said to my wife, I said, I got to go. Yep. And she looked at me and she said, you know, I don't want you to go. And she said, we need you here. And I said, no. I said, my family needs me out there, because if that's where I need to be right now. So I went out there and, you know, I did what I could to try and I saw some young men that I mentored, right? I saw some of the young men that were a part of programs that I dealt with, exactly what I thought was going to happen. And most of them were actually, I was very proud of them because they were there trying to basically, you know, keep things from going too far, you know, so to speak. And in that moment when I came back home, you know, I kissed my son and I said, you know, I did what I could. And for me, that's what it's about. You know, as someone in my, you know, in what I'm doing in life, I realized that, you know, I could sit back and be very comfortable with, you know, being a part of this corporate fabric and, you know, doing the things that, you know, my particular lifestyle allows. But for me, I want to be able to know that I'm trying to fashion a better place for my son to come up in. And that's very important to me. And I know that that's not going to start later in life. That starts now, you know, for me to be able to look him in his eye and say, you need to go out and lead. And the only way I can say that to him with authenticity is integrity, and to know that I've made those choices. That's right. When it was uncomfortable when it was easier to sit back and sort of say, let somebody else figure it out. So it's important to me to, you know, I have that independent motivation for it, but I also want to be able to look my son in the eye and be able, when I say things to him, be able to say, again, with authenticity and integrity, why he needs to do something. Because why? Because your father is living. He's telling you what he knows. He's not telling you what he thinks.
That's good, man.
That's very important to me.
That's good. Oscar, I just want to say something to Oscar real quick, because he had made a comment about the brothers of old that stood strong and laid a foundation for us. I just want to say, man, I really believe in this generation, not to say that we don't need brothers like that anymore, because we always need voices. What we need is strong local efforts. We need in each of our little pockets of the world, be it Delaware, be it Georgia, be it, we need people to stand up. You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. And I've sometimes, I stand up a lot. I mean, I stand strong. I've always been like that. And it may have limited opportunities for me, but it doesn't matter. But many times I felt like I was standing alone. Like you're willing to challenge things. And then you look over your shoulder and like nobody's challenging with you. Like people are just too concerned, like I said, about what people think about them. So I really believe when people start to see strong local efforts, which I think they're starting to see now, because I'm noticing that people are starting to bend a little bit and say, we want to think about doing this. And they're starting to embrace like the Black Lives Matter. And they're starting to say, okay, we need to make some changes. Corporations are now starting to flow dollars into Black owned businesses and all of that. So I think the primary reason why is because indirectly we are creating a sense of national synergy through, like I just had some work that's about to be done on my home. I went to Black Dollars Matters and I put it in there. And I guess what? I got this young brother that's going to come out and do the work. Why? Because now we're getting wiser and we're getting smarter. And I think those brothers laid a foundation and they served their purpose as well. Farrakhan will tell you, he's the only person I can tell you with smile in your face and tell you something that like you sitting there like, he talking about you. Don't you know he's talking about you? But by the time you're done, you realize he's talking about you, but it's too late because he already got it out there. But the reality is he served a very strong purpose. So what I'm going to say, Omar, on your show here today is we need people to stop settling. You know what I mean? If you see challenges with Black-owned businesses, challenge the state agencies. I did. If you know, and I did, and they thought, well, you're like the only one. No, if they see a bunch of us doing it, guess what? They're going to listen. If you see things happen in your community, you know, you don't have to wait for a coalition. Speak out. Because the more we have people that's willing to stand collectively on a national level, that's why I think today we're seeing some of the things we're doing. I've never seen so many phone calls to my office. We want to learn about equity. We want to learn about Black race relations. I'm like, what? Where'd this come from? You know, and I know it's not because I'm some fantastic human being. It's because folks are now starting to realize this is not going away. People are challenging the status quo now. And I'm glad.
That's interesting because you see that we're learning something that I notice all the time, that when you see different cultures, you know, between Europe and Asia, specifically Asians, I see a lot of times. I live in the Bronx. They will go all the way from where I live at.
Yep.
They will go all the way to Chinatown.
Yep.
And shop.
That's right.
But see, that's something that we never did. You know what I'm saying? We give, and we don't seek out Black businesses, and then we also haggle. We haggle, you know, the Black business guy. But if Macy's says something costs, you know, $79.99, you take out $80. But why would you go to the Black business and say I only got $60?
Yeah.
Right.
That's what you give it to the white guy. Give that speech to the white guy, you know, and pay maximum dollar to us. It's all twisted up, man.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I just add, I'm starting to see some of the same thing that Coach D spoke to a moment ago about people being more conscientious about where they're spending their dollars. You know, I've been practicing law for 8 years now. I'm about people wanting to come and find out how they can do business with me and my firm, and I'm grateful for it. But it's something that, you know, I hope continues. And it's just an awareness of saying I could spend my money here, but if I can get the same or better service with, you know, why not? You know, why not? So it's something that I hope this moment doesn't become a fad, and that is something that continues, because that what you just described, Brother Oscar, that's the way.
It is.
That is the way. That's the thing that's going to get people's attention. Yep. Okay. A lot of this other stuff is stunts and it's temporary, and that's no disrespect to the people who are trying to find out how to move it forward. But that economic solidarity,
that's money, right?
That's
there.
A powerful
because
thing.
you know Black people can buy all kinds of crap.
We have, they said
we buy stuff we don't need. So we keep the economy going. Imagine if we steer it where we want to steer it, because we buy everything that we don't need.
Culturally, I think we're second and third in the world as far as spending power. I think
Ain't that something?
We have the most amazing spending power. And it's interesting you say this, because I was talking to my son earlier today, my son Daryl Jr. And I said, Daryl, I mean, it's right in line with what you're talking about, Wally. And I said, isn't it interesting? I said, you know, where we live, you have a super G in different places and all of that. And I said, isn't it interesting that you can go into a super G? I said, when's the last time you saw an Asian at a super G? You know, when's the last time you saw a Jew at a super G? You know, go there. Like you said, they'll drive 25 miles to go buy from their shops, you know. And here's another thing too. That's why we have to advocate for entrepreneurism. In our communities, we don't own nothing. So the ladies go to the hair shop, and who owns that? The Asians. You know what I mean? And so the dollars are flowing right back into the Asian community.
That's why I don't like when they, oh, sorry to cut you off. Yeah. That's why I don't like when they say, well, you tearing down your neighborhood. But we don't own anything there. Not since Rosewood, not since Tulsa.
No, we don't own any of that. And so the reality is that's it. And, you know, that would take a long time for us to kind of solve that problem here on this show. But the reality is, you know, I'm in it. There's a website that says Black Dollars Matter. I use it now. You know, for any car.
I'm gonna look for that. I'm gonna look for that.
It's online. I think it's a Delaware based, because most of the people and I'm telling you, man, because if I'm gonna spend my money, I want to spend my money on, especially if it's quality service, good work. I want to spend our money and our dollars on our people.
Earlier, we touched on the Black Lives Matter movement, and throughout these series, I've been asking different gentlemen what's their take on the Black Lives Matter movement. So I want to start with Oscar. Oscar, what is your take on the Black Lives Matter movement? If anyone else wants to chime in, they can.
I think you know, it's positive. It's positive, and I mean, you got people on both sides, you know, that, you know, try to weigh it down and make it and demonize it. But I seen white guys in there with blackface on. I seen white guys in there with earplugs in. So we know we got all kind of other instigators that are involved in, you know, taking the message somewhere else and demonizing Black Lives Matter. I mean, I think that, you know, they're doing great stuff. And, you know, if you can keep your name on the president's mouth, I mean, it's obviously you're doing something positive, you know. But like you said, Coach, as well, then you got to localize it. You know, then we have to also ask, like, for example, like in my neighborhood, I think there's equal blacks to Latinos, or even more blacks. We have no black representative. Nobody. And I can understand the Latino cats, they're gonna look out for their own, because that's what you're supposed to do. But the whole problem is we don't have anybody that goes to him, to the borough president, to the city council, and say, we're not voting for any more Latinos until you start putting black people on the ballot. We don't ask. Yep. We don't even ask. It's amazing. Joe Caliber, who was the senator that was part of that Ray Donovan, that scandal when Reagan was president. And Joe Caliber was the last senator that we had. That was the 80s when Reagan. Every one of them since, and that's the same thing. We're not representative in there. We always have somebody else. We caught one of our politicians actually messed up. Elliot Engel was in Congress and actually said in front of the borough president, he said during COVID, I wouldn't be out here now if it wasn't for this. Yeah. After 30 years, he actually said something honest, and he got booted. Yeah. You know, but this goes to show you the level of what we have. You know, and it's terrible. We have to take representation more at the grassroots level, like you said, Coach. It's got to start there, and it's got to come out, because that's, you know, we see how doesn't matter what goes on federally. If Georgia and Michigan and all these other states are going to, let, you know, bullies and white supremacists run stuff and suppress us and use legal mandates to stop us from voting and all this other stuff, we got to get in there and be much more aggressive.
You know, I would like to just throw my thoughts in there with this. You know, I'm the kind of person, I look at the big picture and then I take it and I make it narrow. Okay, here's the big picture of what we're talking about, but on the back end, what's going on? You know, what's really happening, you know, within all of this. So as a black man, how could I not in any way say black lives matter? I'm a black man. These young black kids that I mentor, like Wally talks about, and try to inspire, their lives count, you know, and the mother's lives and the fathers. So all, you know, but the big thing I'm hoping for and praying for this go round is that, you know, what we're doing, one, it doesn't end till we see change because we need it. But one thing we're going to see, we got to start infecting policy on every level. Until we get to the point where policy, because policy is what drives a lot of this stuff. And so until we got to keep our foot on the gas until we start seeing policy changes at city level, state level, national level. And that's when you know, okay, the game is being played on an even playing field, because they'll go along with all the other stuff. You know, oh yeah, we're for you, and oh yeah, you know, and hold, you know, and high five you, and yeah, but ain't moving no policy. I'm like,
they'll meet with you. They'll meet with you. We'll meet. Oh, yeah, you know, we'll have a summit. We'll have a summit.
We're for you, yeah, but what's the policy? Right. Tell me in writing what you're going to do for our race as a result of you being in that position. Because so I'm not moved by the other stuff, because that's just feel good. Until we get to that point, we won't see change, because what they'll do is just think, they're going to fade away. It's just going to be another group, another movement, you know? And so to me, yes, Black Lives Matter. We shout it from the rooftop, but we also, and I'm going to say this, we need to be in them legislative halls. Yes. We need to be when those bills are being passed and those laws are being passed in numbers, challenging some of those, because that's the big fear. I don't want
black people don't have lobbyists. That's the problem. We don't have a lobbyist.
Everybody else
corporations do. The black people as a whole, we don't have.
Everybody else does.
Yeah.
And they had those halls.
We need some black billionaires with real money to create some, like you just said, funds, and really go after that reparation. Really go after that, and don't give checks to nobody. Mm-hmm. Just buy real estate. Just buy up stuff, and own a lot of stuff, and just buy up everything for like 10 years. Then give out checks. Yeah. When you own everything.
Yeah.
And it creates a revenue, then you start giving out. We got to catch up. That means we need to buy everything, or everything that white people have ever taken from us, we got to buy it back.
Yeah. Wally, you agree with me on that, man? Because I'm telling you, I just can't look beyond.
Man,
I mean, my mind is wired. I can't.
Yeah.
Coach, you just laid it down so thorough. Man, I'm sitting here. Listen, I would quote you to the T on everything you said. I'm a black man.
Yeah.
Black lives, of course. Mm-hmm. Okay. What's the debate about?
Yeah.
Right. That is anybody who has an issue with that statement. It's a nonsensical. You can't argue with it. Right. So let's just get that out the way. The real question, to your point, is what, with the national attention on this platform, what are folks doing at every level at which the attention is garnered? So we are here, you know, we're talking about, you know, primarily in the context of the state of Delaware. There's been some attention locally on folks who are leading this movement. Mm-hmm. And again, I think the primary point is, what are we using? The platforms are only good as what you do with them.
That's right.
A person can have the same platform and accomplish an entirely different result. So when you have a platform, when you have an attention, you have to be strategic about how you're going to leverage that platform in order to enact change. So energy matters, right? Passion matters, right? Having people who are willing to do the work that other people, that matters. But you have to have strategy.
Yeah.
You have to, you cannot just simply say, what are you going to do for us? No, this is what I need you to do. Right? Not just what are you going to do? This is what we need. Tell these people, don't just be glad you got a meeting, right? And say we got a meeting. What did you accomplish? And further, who is guiding you? Who is coaching? Who strategically? We talked about, Brother Oscar talked about the laws earlier, how, you know, the people who create the laws, it's nuance. That stuff matters, you know. The Bill of Rights for police, right? Things like that. Those things are put in place, right? The language matters, you know. We need to have people who are skilled in these things partner with the people who are energized and who are leading the forward. We need to collaborate. We operate too much in silos. We ready, set, go. We don't strategize. And we need to seek out those of us who have different skill sets in order to say, you know what, we need to make this happen. You can do this, but I can't do that. I can do this, but I can't do that. We need to really be conscious of each other and collaborate in a more effective manner. Otherwise, folks will continue to play us against one another.
Yep.
And that's not going to get us nowhere. That's going to waste the movement. That's going to waste the time. So I think that, of course, the movement is a powerful thing, but it's only as powerful as we choose to collaborate with one another. Yep. Take those. If a brother has some, you might need somebody who got some money. Brother Oscar said, who can put together the signs. What you doing out there protesting? You ain't got no signs. You ain't got, you need somebody who knows logistics, who can say, we're marching this way and that way, and this is the route we're going to take. Do we need a permit? Yes. How do we get the permit? Let's talk to the brother who has an understanding of the policy so that the thing is tight. So that folks aren't getting you on technicalities about where you planned your march and how you plan your march. These things don't have to be done in a haphazard way. They don't have to be. So that's the thing that we need to get. And it can be powerful because, again, people know, they see the weaknesses in these things, right? And they do things to placate, but if they see organizations, they see tightness, if they see cohesion, and there's people positioned at every level. There's people positioned in the legislature, right? Particularly in Delaware, we have a very strong Black caucus, legislative Black caucus, who has been doing some great things. We have people, again, who are at the grassroots, who have the energy and the passion, who are ready to make moves. And we got people who are inside corporate structures who know how to navigate. So let's combine, let's collaborate, let's make it happen. And that's what I think is going to be the thing that makes the BLM movement really move.
That's good.
All right, so with the time we have remaining, about maybe 15, 20 minutes, I want to ask you, gentlemen, since this topic is a conversation with men of color, I want to start off with Oscar, Coach D, and then Wale. Who are the men in your life that is like a mentor or role model that you admire and made a change in your personal life, your personal achievements, your personal decisions? We'll start off with Oscar.
Oh, man. Well, that's a good question.
You want me to come back to you?
Yeah, come back to me. Let me think about that.
I'm going to give you three people, and they're going to be all abridged. Now, I just want to show you how they all impacted my life. All right. One was someone you guys remember that used to be here. He moved some years ago. He was the president over at Discover Card, and that was Nathan Hill. And Nathan was just a good brother. You know what I mean? A real good brother. He was the one, Wally, when we were doing the Ebony Tide Fair, that was really instrumental in helping me start that whole piece with the youth. And this guy had a big heart, and I'll never forget one time I went to over to his office over in Reed's Way in Newcastle. And we was going to have like a mentoring session. And I went into his office, and one of those big, beautiful plush offices, and the secretary said, now you could tell she was looking like, this man is busy, so you ain't got that much time, And and so I went in there and like expected, not a lot of time. And I think it was like 30 minutes I had, and 40 minutes in, he's still sharing stuff with me. I'm getting nervous. She's ringing the buzzer saying, you got people from China and you got people from all these different places. And he's still talking to me. And I'm like thinking, now my heart is beating. I'm like, Nathan, you got people from China waiting for you, like we can end this. And at the end, about 50 minutes of a mentoring session, I said, Nathan, I feel bad like I've taken you. He said, listen, let me tell you something, Daryl. He said, those people out in the boardroom, those people in China, this is my everyday. He said, but when I'm sitting down with somebody, that's the most important person in the world. Man, that thing got me right there. It got me that a man of his stature could see this young up and coming young entrepreneur and say, you are the most important person in the world. So I learned tremendous leadership skills from him in the way he did things. Another one of my mentors, unfortunately, passed away. His name is Dr. Miles Monroe. And I would take my family and fly them over to the Bahamas and spend time with him. He was a pastor. He was one of the best leadership people in the world. I mean, people from all over the world would invite him in to speak and consult and things like that. And he's the one that really helped me understand the power of purpose. One of his books was entitled Unleashing Your Potential. And that book changed my life. That's when I started talking about passion and purpose. My first book was How to Find Your Passion and Make a Living at It. That was all influenced by Dr. Miles Monroe. And the third person that impacted my life is a guy named Earl Stafford. Earl is a businessman out of Virginia. He started a company by the name of Unitech. He's recently sold that company like 3 or 4 years ago to Lockheed Martin for like $500 million. And so he's kind of like retired now. So he's not doing a whole lot. But Earl was amazing. And I didn't spend a lot of time with him, but he said something to me that was just was so powerful. And I think you brothers will get a lot out of this. He talked to me about like dreams and all of that. And he said, you know, Daryl, let me tell you something. You know, you're interacting with me because, you know, we made a connection. You want me to mentor and things like that. He said, but let me tell you something about dreams. All right. He said, most people have dreams. Most people want to do things. Most people want to accomplish things. Most people want to. He said, but I'm going to tell you something, young man, and don't you ever forget this as long as you live. He said, don't be like 90% of the population that falls in love with the dream. He said, be like the 5% that falls in love with the process. He said, it's the process that takes you to your dreams. He said, so don't get caught up in the hype, man. It's the day-to-day regimens, the systems, the meeting the right people, understanding finances, all these different things that help you build your entrepreneurial dream. And he said, that's the messy stuff. So those are 3 people that just changed, really just impacted my life. They're good men, fathers, family men, businessmen, and, you know, Christians, love the Lord, man. And those guys really blessed my lives. So this, I know you said 1, but I had to give you 3.
That was okay. Okay, Wally.
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough question, man. Oh, man, golly, it's you know, I've been blessed with so many different good men who have contributed in a number of different ways to my life. But I'm going to answer your question as best as I can with understanding that some men just won't get mentioned. The first person that I'm going to mention 2 people in tandem. The first 2 people are a gentleman named Michael Waring, who has since passed, and a brother named James Sims, who's fortunately still with us. Brother James was my martial arts instructor when I was a young man growing up in Chester, and Mr. Michael was a family friend. Both of them were very good friends with my mother, who was my primary caretaker when I was living in Chester. And these men loved me like I was their own son. And they taught me things about being a man as a young man that Mr. Michael taught me about selflessness, the things that he would do for my family, you know, the care in which he would just offer his generosity and his time to us and not being his children was something that I think was one of my catalysts for wanting to be a mentor, knowing that you could love someone and care for someone without them being your blood because you just want to see them do well. So I thank Mr. Michael for teaching me about that selflessness. And Brother James taught me how to be tough. He taught me about, but being tough isn't about what you project on the outside. It's about having that strength on the inside. You know, as I'm sitting there, I'm the bookworm in Chester, PA. You know, I'm the kid sitting in there raising his hand, answering the classes, but I'm a bad man. You know, I know how to, take care of myself. And I was grateful for those lessons he taught me about being tough and about knowing how to take care of yourself, but not necessarily being a bully. So those were good lessons for me to learn about inner strength. Then as I sort of got a little older, I have to, give a shout out to one of my main mentors who taught me about my own potential and maximizing my own potential. And that's Anwar Miller. Coach D shouted out some powerful names that transformed my life. I knew nothing about Jim Rohn. I knew nothing about Zig Ziglar. I knew nothing about Les Brown. But these men came into my life through Anwar Miller when I was in my early 20s. And they completely transformed my mind about what was possible for me and my potential, regardless of whatever society said about me. That mindset I projected at the beginning of this call, Anwar Miller helped instill in me. Again, not a man who was, but he fundamentally, he was a catalyst for me deciding to take that step to go to law school and achieve the dreams that were put in me, because I got introduced to some of those great minds and be able to sort of tinker with my own. And the last, again, and I'm taking some liberties here, the last 2 men that I'm going to mention are Tony Allen and Tom Carper. And the reason that I mention these two in tandem is because they came into my life at a time where I'm trying to sort of plot my way in the world. You know, I'm college educated, but I'm still having to figure out what my next steps are. And Tony and Senator Carper came into my life and basically held my hand and told me, young man, this is the way of leaders in action, right? This is the way that you get things done in this world. And they taught me that being successful and being committed to your values were not mutually exclusive. And I learned that from watching these men in action. People think they know, but I got a chance to watch these men up close and personal, and they continue to be close confidants to me to this day. So I know I dropped a lot of names. There's a few more I could drop, but I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay.
Well, some
All
good
right, Oscar,
names,
you
brother.
ready?
Good
Oscar, you
names.
ready?
Yeah. I would go with Billy Bang. It's the jazz violinist that I used to play with. Actually, I wound up doing a jazz documentary on him that won a few awards. But because I've known him ever since I was introduced, he was my brother's best friend. So he babysitted me. So I learned a lot through the arts about jazz. You know, I knew about Thelonious Monk when I was like 10 years old, 12 years old, And those things taught me, how to love each other, because these guys were together and music brought them together and being black brought them together, and they included me, and everything about them inspired me to do something. At that point, I was very young, and I went through some, different endeavors to find out who I was. And then lastly, what I really entered was Fred Williamson, which is someone I still stay in contact with. And I remember when he to me, he was one of the rare heroes that I remember in Hollywood at that time. Because now when you look at a movie, black people are only their movies take place in like 3 or 4 places, Atlanta, Compton, and Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Back then you had Cleopatra Jones. She was in Hong Kong.
Mhm.
You had Fred Williamson. You had Ass Getting the Girl. I don't know why they call it black exploitation. I don't know why they say that. We did everything. We did everything back then, as opposed to now, we're just actors. But, when we're not heroes. And these go back to those same things about images, man. I'm so big on images. That's why, we have women out here wearing their hair in colors that look like Disney, and sky blue and orange and all this other stuff, because they never, ever saw. And when you looked at a Vogue magazine or you looked at Cosmopolitan, you saw a white girl, 120 pounds. And you saw that, that's terrible. You like when I was a kid, that's terrible. They had to play with white dolls. So they had these hang-ups, and we have these hang-ups about being, white, as they like to say in Shy, you're doing white people shit. I love the way they say that. And it's like, it's like these things, to me, they told me that you needed to do what would make your people look good. We have to take a lot of self-pride, in what we do. And when we're touching things, are we touching things that make other people look at us and say, you did us proud? Or are we just making it worse, for us as a race? Because, white people look at these images and see their ignorance, allows them to stereotype us. You know why? Because they keep putting us in those positions in media. We're either handcuffed or angry or screaming or shooting something, or informing on someone, and there's a lot of people like Coach and Waleed and Omar. Those are what the movies and the stories are supposed to be about.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah. If I could say this real quick too, just a real quick fatherhood point, because I'm a father. Yeah, that's one of the biggest parts of who I am. Listen to us talk about the images. One thing we need to do as dads, man, we got to tell our girls they're beautiful, man. We got to tell our girls, man. My daughter's I'm gonna tell you, my daughter, she's always FaceTiming me, and every time I see her, the first words out of my mouth is, "Hey, beautiful," because she is, man.
Mm-hmm.
She literally is. She's beautiful inside and out. She has one of the biggest hearts. My daughter at 14 started a nonprofit organization to help kids in Nairobi, Kenya. She's been back and forth to Africa 10 times. It took me half my life to get there. And this little girl has been back and forth. When she was 16 years old, she started a nonprofit. Omar interviewed her. She was 16 years old. She started.
Awesome.
She spent 2 months over in Nairobi as a special education teacher. you know. And but ever since they were babies, man, they, you know, and I got my 10-year-old now. I put them and I said, put your feet on mine, and we just dance around. You know what I mean? I tell Siri to put a song on, and we dancing. We fathers, man, I'm telling you something. I'm just gonna say this to the dads, because we got, you know, when it comes to our girls, and our boys are important. We talk about them a lot. To our girls, we need to be their first love. We need to be their first love. We need to be the one that their daddy should be play such an important role in their lives. And you can't do that trying to be a tough dad. You're going to have to soften up, you know what I mean? And look them in the eyes and be willing to hold them when they cry. There's times my daughters would cry. I remember when my oldest was younger, she would cry sometime. And I'm like, what are you crying about? And I just started hugging her. She said, I don't know. She's just crying. Just crying, you know? And I hold her, I'm sorry, well, baby, you don't know. Just cry as long as you want to, you know? When they would have fevers, I'm the one taking that cold rag and putting them on their head and holding them. Man, I'm telling you, this is fatherhood, man. Our children, I got to give a shout out. We talk about men. There's a man named Pastor Harry Jones in Media, Pennsylvania. And I just want to tell you, he taught me some more about manhood than anything. And he said, men are supposed to provide, to protect, and to nurture. We do okay with the providing. We do okay with the provision, but the nurturing part, we got to work on. Because being a tough guy is not going to turn your children. I'm telling you, your children's heart is going to go towards you when you show them that you love them, right. that unconditionally. And so I just want to do that as we get ready to wrap up, to talk to the fathers, man, because this is so important. And I'm going to say this as well. Don't be so consumed in your career that you don't make special quality time for your children. Mm-hmm. You got to. One of the things I love about what COVID-19 did, I call it disruptive innovation, because it did. It took this old boy off an airplane and put him on this computer. So I'm not traveling all over the world, man. At 5 o'clock, I'm done. I'm shutting it down. I'm out there shooting basketball with my kids and my hoop out front. I'm walking around. We going places. It's been beautiful. And I said, man, all these years, I wish it would have happened 18 years ago. I would have been different. But now I realize, man, this is what it's all about. And let me tell you something. Our girls will never have to question their beauty if their dad tell them that they are.
Right. Okay, gentlemen. So just 20 seconds each. We'll start with Oscar. How can people contact you that's watching right now? Email, phone number, Facebook?
Email is malcolmentertainment@yahoo.com. You can sign up for updates on all my live performances if you want to hire me for any virtual education with poetry and cinema analysis. You can sign up at my website, malcolmentertainment.com, Instagram, Oscar Sanders 2202, Twitter @Oscar Sanders. I endorse this message.
Okay, Coach D.
Yeah, you can go to my website is coachdspeaks.com, coachdspeaks.com, and you have see all the information of different work we do there. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you go to Daryl Coach D Andrews on LinkedIn, I'm writing articles. I'm doing all kinds of different things and interviewing. I'm one of the 400 people they select to do LinkedIn Live. So daily, I'm putting out some type of motivational message. Also some informational messages and structures and strategies, because like Wally was saying, it can't just be all hype. It's got to be structure and strategies, you know. And so Daryl Coach D Andrews. And then I'm also at Coach D Speaks on Instagram and on Twitter. But my website is the best place to go. And in 2 days, I'm going to have a brand new website. So don't go today. Just write it down. And in 2 days, go to my new website, because that thing is going to have blogs and everything on. It's going to be really nice. So listen, I do a lot of training and professional development and motivational type things, but we also do a lot of personal coaching. And a big area of coaching we're doing now is helping people to rebrand and reinvent themselves. I partnered with a guy you all probably familiar with. You probably don't know his name, but you know his music. All right, his name is Jay McGowan, and he created songs like "Hoot There It Is," "Come and Ride the Train," and all of that, and "Tootsie Roll" and Space Jam. He just did the new Space Jam with LeBron. But Jay is also a rebranding expert, so we're partnering around some transformation rebranding.
Yeah, I heard there was a new Space Jam.
Yeah. Jay and I just got done recording all. Wow. My new partners, and we're doing some work, and it's gonna be powerful.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, those are the things I do, man. I love my work. I mean, you know, great relationships with my customers, and I've been doing this stuff for 20+ years. So that's who I am.
Wally.
Yes, sir. So the best way to get in contact with me. Again, as I mentioned, I practice law for a living. So if I can assist the community in any way, in any legal needs, I'm also the former president of the Black Lawyers Association of Delaware. So if you're looking for a lawyer in any discipline, it may not be mine. I can connect you with a very skilled person in Delaware who has that particular ability to help you. My email address is my first initial W, my last name spelled out, Rushdan, RUSHDAN, and that's at Fox, FOX, Rothschild, ROTHSCHILD.com. And for anything, frankly, dealing with the community or dealing with mentorship or anything on a personal level, wrushdan@gmail.com. You're welcome to email me. I look young, but unfortunately, I'm not really on social media. So if you message me on Facebook, you might not get a response in a timely manner. I'm just telling you, I have an Instagram profile, not on it. Email is the way I manage my digital communication. So please email me and you will get a prompt response.
You come out on Groundhog Day, huh? One time.
I come strong. I come real strong with it. But you know, it's limited, brother. It's limited.
Okay, gentlemen. So,
points. Oh man.
I'd like to thank the audience for watching this episode 6 of our conversation with Men Only. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends on this particular program. Gentlemen, you're all awesome, and I thank you for being a guest this evening.
Thank you, and thank you, Coach, and thank you, Wally. It's a pleasure, man.
Wally, absolutely. Man. It was a real honor sharing this platform with y'all, brothers. Yeah. Great conversation.
Same here.
Yes.
God bless. All right, guys.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.